The Chicken Asylum, an Alex Reynolds mystery. Author, Fred Hunter. Publisher, St. Martin's, Griffin, New York. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 9. As usual, when I have a sleepless night, I finally fell asleep about 20 minutes before it was time to get up. Peter was already taking a shower. I went into our bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. There were rings under my eyes, and my face looked like a cake that had fallen. The nerve endings all over my body felt like they were misfiring. I sighed, realizing that I was going to have to resign myself to feeling like a ferret on crack for the rest of the day. I ran some cool water and splashed it on my face, which helped a little, but not much. Through the frosted glass of the shower stall, I could see Peter vigorously rubbing soap over his legs. I went over to the stall, pulled open the door, and stepped in. "Bad night," he said, righting himself. "Mm-hmm." The warm water flattened the hair on my chest and started to relax my muscles. He started to say something else and changed his mind. He put the soap back in its dish, moved closer to me, and gently pushed me back against the tile wall. "Let me see if I can make it better." He pressed his wet flesh against mine, and we kissed deeply. A shower stall isn't exactly a cascading waterfall, but it'll do in a pinch. Despite the fact that we were vertical, there was a surprising tenderness in the way we made love that morning. After several days of dealing with James, the poster child for abandonment, we needed to reassure each other on a cellular level that we were not alone in this world. It was like having a large glass of brandy. It didn't change anything, but for a while I didn't care. I have to admit, though, when I got around to actually showering, I caught myself humming. When we went down to breakfast, we found Mother pensively frying eggs. She stood holding the spatula to one side and staring down at the contents of the frying pan as if she thought the yolks held a secret code. After exchanging good morning, she said, "Did you think of anyone we might send James to?" "No," I replied. And it wasn't for lack of trying. I must have only gotten 5 minutes sleep. She gave me a sympathetic wink. "Poor dear. But you know, sleep on it means you're supposed to let go of it for the night and let the answer come to you. Did you sleep?" "Like a top." "And did you get the answer?" "Not for what to do with James, but I did remember where I put the good scissors." I rolled my eyes, and Peter laughed. He retrieved the pitcher of orange juice from the refrigerator while I laid 3 plates on the counter, beside Mother. She was just starting to dish out the eggs when the doorbell rang. The 3 of us stopped what we were doing and looked at each other. "Who on earth could that be so early?" said Mother. "I don't know," I said, "but I have a feeling it's not good news." Mother put the frying pan to one side and turned off the burner. Then we went to the front door together. Through some sort of unspoken understanding that we were all in for it, Mother opened the door and Agent Frederick stormed in, almost knocking her aside, which didn't endear him any further to us. Nelson followed him in the calm manner he maintains even in the worst situations. "Where is he?" Fredericks demanded. I beg your pardon," said Mother, her tone conveying that she was affronted by his manner. "Where is he?" "Where's who?" I asked. "You know who. James Paschal." "Agent Fredericks," Nelson said evenly. "Control yourself." Fredericks glared at him. "You know what they've done?" "No, I don't. That's why I've come to find out. These are my people, and I'm the one who will handle this." "We're on American soil. This is an FBI case." "James is a guest of my branch here. We're responsible for him." "Not anymore. Once he took off, he became my problem." "That may be," said Nelson. "But I'm responsible for my people, and I will handle this." Although Nelson said all this with perfect equanimity, I got the feeling that he was working at controlling himself. We had witnessed this type of tension between the two agencies before in an ongoing career with the CIA, but this time it was worse. What's this all about, Larry? Mother asked. Agent Davidson, who was on duty in front of your house last evening, reported something unusual that warrants an explanation. What's that? She replied with perfect innocence. He reported that last night at 9:30, a young man was seen leaving your house. So, said Peter. The odd thing is that he has no record of the young man coming into your house. You can see the problem? Obviously, he missed him coming in, I said. Davidson is one of my men, Fredericks boomed. That explains it. He didn't miss a thing. You smuggled that kid out of here. Smuggled? Mother exclaimed with wide eyes. You just said that your man saw this person leave our house, right through the front door. You know damn well I'm not talking about that. Where is he? What have you done with him? Do you mean James? Mother said, deepening her British lilt for emphasis. You must be mad. The guy your agent saw leaving here was just a friend of ours, said Peter. Mother said to Nelson, Did your man happen to note what the young man looked like? Yes, Frederick snapped before Nelson could reply. Blonde, crew cut, about 5'6", and obviously... Obviously what? Peter said sharply. Fredericks caught himself and looked to Nelson. I would think the one thing that's obvious is that is not a description of James, Mother said haughtily. That's true, said Nelson. However, an hour earlier, Davidson noted a couple leaving your house, a man with a dark-skinned woman. And was Davidson awake to see them arrive? I asked quickly. Davidson is a good man, Frederick said loudly. He saw what he saw. Nelson said, Agent Fredericks thought it possible that one of those people might have been James. I didn't think he was that clever, I said under my breath. Peter leaned close to my ear and whispered, Shut up. Mother folded her arms under her breast and leveled her eyes at him. And what are you suggesting? That James was the white man or the black woman? That still leaves you one up on visitors, said Nelson. Honestly, Larry, your man saw them come and leave. He simply missed seeing our other friend when he came over. And I must say it doesn't give me the least feeling of security to know that one of the people who is supposed to be watching, to make sure someone didn't sneak into our house, doesn't even see someone who enters through the front door. Fredericks looked like he was about to burst. Look, lady. I cut him off. Don't you call my mother a lady? They all looked at me. You know what I mean. I don't know what you think you're doing helping this kid, but he's a terrorist and a danger to the country. In my irritation, fueled by lack of sleep, I had to fight the urge to say, Says you. And we've got to find him. Mother produced her most condescending smile. Oh, I think I'm beginning to understand now. It was you who lost James. What with your rough handling and your gunplay, he ran away from you at that bar, and now you're trying to shift responsibility to anyone else. No matter how potty your accusations might be. She looked at Nelson. James knows we work with you. I should think we'd be the last people he'd come to for help. Nelson gazed back at her so impassively that I swore he could see our entire plot laid bare. I almost shivered. That is, of course, a valid point. And when Agent Fredericks brought up the discrepancy in the number of your guests and suggested the possibility that you were somehow engaged in assisting James, that was my first consideration. However, it did occur to me that having run away, James is in a dilemma. He couldn't very well go to his friends who apparently have tried to kill him. The only other people he knows in this country are you. Like Mother said, he knows we work for you. I said, so he wouldn't think he could trust us, would he? There was a beat before Nelson replied. I couldn't say. Oh, for Christ's sake, said Peter. He could have just as easily gone off on his own. He could be anywhere. I've spent a considerable amount of time with him over the past several days. He didn't strike me as the type of person who has it in him to fend for himself, on his own in a strange country. Did he strike you that way? I had in my mind the picture of our little guest, cowering behind the couch in the basement. Of course he did. I lied with my usual lack of conviction. He's a soldier. Look, I don't know why you're standing here making polite conversation with these people, Frederick said to Nelson. They're assisting a fugitive. Even if we were in a position to do that, why would we? Mother asked. Helsinki Syndrome, Frederick's pronounced authoritative. What? Said Peter, his jaw dropping. You heard me. That's when prisoners start sympathizing with their captors. Stockholm Syndrome, said Peter. Frederick stared blankly. What? That's Stockholm Syndrome. Common mistake. I don't know if you've heard, I said, but James wasn't holding us hostage. It could happen in reverse, said Fredericks. We bloody well weren't holding him hostage either, said Mother. This wouldn't be the first time this type of alliance was formed. You could easily have gained sympathy for him while he was staying here, and if he managed to win you over, I've got to warn you, these people are nothing to screw with. These people, Mother said archly. The Red Jihad. They'll say and do anything to get what they want. If you're feeling sorry for them, they have you right where they want you. Assuming you're right about James being one of them, Mother said, which I very much doubt. Fredericks displayed the type of smile you immediately want to wipe away with a lawnmower. So you do sympathize with him? I'm not being sympathetic, she replied down her nose. I'm being rational. His smile disappeared. One thing I'll tell you now. If you're helping a fugitive, you're going to be in some big trouble. You give us an awful lot of credit, Peter said. How do you think we helped him? It's obvious. Obvious, I said, forgetting for the moment that it probably wasn't a good idea to sound offended, and that he didn't think my plan was ingenious. We already said it. You got him out of here in disguise. In disguise, Mother exclaimed with a sardonic laugh. Are you actually suggesting that we took a soldier, newly arrived from Iraq, dressed him up like a woman, and sent him out on the street? Do you actually think we would do something that daft? Only my mother could manage to sound so indignant when accused of something we'd actually done. It was a gamble, but it worked. Fredericks looked as if he was realizing for the first time how incredibly crazy that did sound. When he hesitated, I looked over at Nelson, and my heart almost stopped at what I saw. He was smiling. No, Nelson said. I'm sure Agent Fredericks doesn't believe that you would do something like that. He looked to Fredericks and cocked his head toward the door. Agent. Hey, wait a minute. I want the names of the people who were here last night. For what? I asked. So I can question them. I intend to find out what happened to that fugitive. Well, you're damn well going to have to do without, Mother said, sounding increasingly incensed. I'll not have you pestering our friends with your wild ideas. Let's go, Fredericks, said Nelson as he opened the door. Fredericks looked like he wanted to question us some more, probably with the aid of bamboo shoots or hot pokers, but knew it wouldn't do any good. Instead, he said, Believe me, this isn't over. I'm going to find out what you've done with him. Be sure to check out all the 7-Elevens, I said. He growled at me and marched out the door. Nelson paused in the doorway and gave us what was perhaps the most significant look I've ever received. He left without a word, closing the door behind him. Dear Lord, we're in it now, Mother exclaimed. I can't believe they put it together so fast, I said. I didn't think they were that smart. What do you think they would think when they saw an extra person leaving our house? Peter said loudly. That we were practicing some sort of magic trick? You know what I thought? Yeah, I know. You thought you could play Watch Me Pull a Faggot Out of My Hat and nobody would notice. That's not fair. It was the only way we could do it, and it doesn't matter if they think we pulled something over on them. They only suspect. They don't know who was here. They don't have any way of finding Joe and Mickey, or Stevie for that matter. We're perfectly safe. His jaw dropped even lower than it had before. Perfectly safe. The FBI thinks we're aiding a terrorist. I gritted my teeth. They think we're aiding somebody. They think it's a terrorist, but he's not. But they don't know that, and we are aiding them. Are you both quite finished? Said Mother, sounding exactly as if she were scolding Jane and Michael Banks. Because if you are, we can consider the much bigger problem we have now. What? I asked. What are you going to do about James? I heaved a sigh. For heaven's sake. You know we haven't thought of anywhere to take him yet. I don't mean that. I mean, how are we going to get him out of town now? I thought you said we'd just drive him. She raised her eyebrows at me. Peter said, Oh, no. And dropped down onto the couch. What? I said irritably. They think we're involved, Mother explained. Now they'll be watching us. We can't go anywhere near James. Oh, God, I said when I realized what she was saying. I slowly lowered myself onto the couch beside Peter. Yes, it's not just that we don't have anywhere to take him. We can't take him there when we do have somewhere to take him. I hardly thought it possible, but we're in a much bigger mess than before. Does Stevie have a car? I wouldn't think so, said Peter. Not where he lives. What about Joe and Mickey? Same thing. Hardly anyone in that neighborhood owns a car. Oh, God, I repeated, burying my face in my hands. After a moment, Peter put his arm over my shoulder affectionately. I'm sorry I snapped at you, honey. It's just, the way I get when I think I'm going to have to spend the rest of my life in a federal penitentiary. I raised my head and looked him in the eye. He was grinning at me lovingly. And he continued, I know I was the one who wanted us to get involved in this business to begin with. Along with me, said Mother. Now let me get this straight, I said, sitting up in my chair. We're both finally admitting that I didn't start all this. That's right, said Peter. Well, darling, said Mother, joining into the spirit of conciliation, as she sat on the arm of the couch. If it makes you feel any better, not only did your plan work, even if they did catch on a bit soon, but it appears it was even more necessary to get James out than I first thought. What do you mean? You heard Larry. It did occur to him that James might come back here, just like I said. We had to do it as quickly as possible. That's not the only thing that occurred to him. I got the distinct impression that he really believes we're helping James. I got that impression as well, said Mother. Funny that. You think so? I unconsciously lapsed into a Yiddish accent. Well, yes, only that Larry usually goes rather out of his way to show nothing. I wonder if he was trying to tell us something. Fredericks told us something that makes me awfully nervous, I said. What? That stuff about how James would try to win our sympathy. How the jihad would do anything to get what they want. What are you saying? Peter asked. Is it possible that James really is part of the jihad? And he's charmed us, just so we would help him get away from the feds. We did everything we could to make him feel as if we weren't. Well, totally in sympathy with Nelson. Maybe he's a lot smarter than we think he is. Mother and Peter glanced at each other, looking very much as if they didn't want to believe this, but couldn't dismiss it out of hand. Then why bother with the gay thing? Peter asked. What do you mean? I can see him using it to get our government to believe he wanted to get out of Iraq. But why tell us about it? I spread my palms. To win us over, to make us think we were all sisters under the skin. He was silent for several seconds, then turned back to Mother, the one person in our lives who was usually an infallible judge of character. Jane. She thought for a long time, apparently playing the last few days in her head. Finally, she rested her palms on her legs, looked up, and said, "I really don't think that boy with the tattered undies is that good an actor." "I don't know," I said with a sigh. "That boy in the bra and panties was giving an awfully good performance when he left here." Our family, now reduced to its normal size, found that it puts a damper on the day to be berated by the feds before breakfast. What followed was one of our worst days. Nelson had certainly understated just how much allowing James in our house would disrupt our lives. But of course, that was before the shootout and the escape, and before we started aiding a fugitive, so I suppose he could be excused. We spent the day being uncharacteristically uncommunicative, as we worried the problem in our various ways. Peter and I converted James's room back into my office, then wandered around the house looking concerned and bumping into each other. Occasionally I peeked out through the curtains of the living room window to see if our guard was still on duty, always knowing that he would be. Mother did what she always does when something's fretting her. She cleaned. I took it as a bad sign that she did it with nary a hum or a whistle. By mid-afternoon, you had to wear sunglasses to tolerate the gleam in the kitchen. It wasn't until afternoon tea, something that we usually don't have with such formality, that we settled down to try to work things out. "I've been thinking about it," I said, pausing for a sip from my mug. "Rather," Mother said ironically. "Actually, I don't think the who is as much of a problem." "You're going to have to explain that one," said Peter. "I mean, who we can get to take James out of town. I'm sure Joe and Mickey would be game. From what I've seen of them so far, they'd be game for anything," Mother said with a sly smile. "They could always rent a car." Peter shook his head. "Too risky, too easy to trace. Car rental companies clock in the mileage before and after your trip. If Fredericks traced them, he'd know exactly how far they went. I suppose, if needs be, I have enough money that I could buy one for them. A used one, I mean," Mother offered. "You're not Janet Leigh, Mother," I said, "and it's not as easy to do that without being traced as it was when they made Psycho." She wrinkled her nose. "Quite right. And look what happened to her." Peter added, "We still don't have any idea where to take James, once we figure out how to do it." "Oh, bother!" Mother exclaimed with frustration. "I'm absolutely stymied." My heart sank. I'd come to rely on my mother's endless stream of ingenuity. When it came to espionage, something that not every son can say, to see her at a loss was more than disheartening. It was almost scary. "You're not throwing in the towel?" "Certainly not, but it is a dilemma. I thought of Joe and Mickey myself. The trouble is, how could we even work it out with them?" I shrugged. "All we'd have to do is talk to them." Mother raised her elegant eyebrows at me. Peter cleared his throat. "How, honey?" "Oh, that's right," I said after a beat. "We can't very well call them," Mother said. "Fredericks will be tracing our calls, if he's not actually listening in. And I'll be willing to bet he's going to have us followed," said Peter. "We not only can't contact James, we can't safely contact anyone else." I suddenly felt the walls closing in around me. If I ever start thinking I'm clever again, remind me of this. I've really gotten us into a hole. The rest of the evening was much the same. The three of us seemed to have disappeared inside our own heads, searching for a solution with no luck. Mother's temporary answer that night was the same as the night before: to sleep on it. I went to bed feeling certain of only one thing, that things couldn't get any worse. I was wrong. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.